Hey, it's Ron McLean. Welcome to Hockey Talk on the Rock.
With Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
All right, here we go. We are back doing Hockey Talk on the Rock, episode number 83. Can you believe it? We've had a little bit of a hiatus for the last 2 weeks. Stuff has happened. But as always, we like to start by talking Canucks news, and there's been mainly just some staff news. So take it away.
So I actually kind of want to start with the Boeser stuff, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's big news too.
Because I feel like that was kind of the biggest news for the Canucks because of all the speculation and talk over the last, since the trade deadline, but really for the last couple of years, it seems like in these cycles we get Boeser trade talk, and then last year was not a great year for Brock, both on and off the ice, and he's kind of acknowledged that. And it sounded like they weren't close. So like all the talk up to kind of last Friday, I guess, was that they were still pretty far off on a deal, and it sounded like the Canucks might file for arbitration. And then Boeser could have just taken his qualifying offer for the 7.5 for 1 year, which also wouldn't have been ideal from a Canucks fan perspective. So I was pretty excited to see that he signed this the 3-year deal at 6.85, which admittedly is probably a little bit steep for him right now. And I think the Canucks know that, but the 3-year term is pretty safe. And then it basically makes him a UFA at 28. So if he wants to leave at 28, then that's a pretty good time to cash in as a hockey player. But I was pretty excited about it. It seems like he's going to be around at least for the next couple of years, and then we'll see what happens. But I think there's a lot of people thinking along the same lines with me, and the fact that he'll probably have somewhat of a bounce back year this year because he's going to be able to focus more on hockey, but he also has to prove that contract now. So
yeah, and I mean anything less than 7.5 for his qualifying offer is kind of a win.
Yeah. And yeah, he could have taken it, right? Like he could have been like, no, I'm taking the 7.5. So I mean, he gets some security there with the 3 years at 6.8, but I think it's a good start for the Canucks. And then leading into the draft this week, we will kind of see which way they lean and what happens. So yeah, still lots of Canucks speculation out there, but the Brock Boeser thing for now is kind of put to bed. So I'm happy about that, and hopefully he lives up to his contract.
And so being that it's Tuesday, July 5th, the draft starts on Thursday.
Friday.
Is it Friday this year?
I thought it was Friday.
I feel like I feel like I thought that too, but for some reason I feel like it's starting on Thursday this year.
Looking it up now.
Googling on the air like the pros do.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was a big signing for the Canucks recently. And then while you're looking that up, there was some news like Mike Yeo did officially come in as an assistant coach. We kind of saw that come in. I think did we talk about how Bradshaw left?
No, we haven't talked about how Bradshaw left, but there's kind of some speculation about that before too.
Yeah, there was rumors he was in the running for other jobs. And then after he did leave, I read a little bit about how him and Boeser didn't really get on that well.
Yeah.
And then so it was more or less like whatever I was reading was saying. It's not too surprising that he went and reunited with Tortorella because they worked together in Columbus. In Philly, and that makes me feel good because like Philadelphia needs a butt ton of friggin' defensive work, so hopefully he can do some good stuff there.
Yeah.
And then Trent Cull got promoted from head coach of the AHL team to an assistant coach.
Yes.
It brought in Jeremy Colleton, formerly head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, to take on the farm team, which I actually like that as a move.
I think that's smart. Yeah, I liked it too.
I'm indifferent about the Mike Yeo move.
Yeah.
And
as an assistant, he's probably a lot better than as a head coach. So I'll leave it as that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He was an assistant in Philly, and I mean, the team of him and Michelle Therrien and Elaine Vidal were really disappointing. So I'm hated. But the final one was Curtis Sanford. leaving the basically the AHL goalie coach position to go do the big squad in Toronto. So now they have yet another position to fill, but that's all right.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll find someone for that job. I mean, good for Curtis Sanford to get a shot in the NHL, but I don't think it's going to hurt the Canucks too badly. It is Thursday, so I'm really glad we had this conversation because I would have been so mad. I mean, I would have figured it out when I started getting notifications, but
yeah. So the first round is Friday, starting at like 4 or 4:30 or whatever.
Thursday, starting at 5.
Yeah, Thursday, sorry, and then round 2 spills over starting Friday morning.
Okay, so we're getting real close to the nitty gritty time then.
Yeah, and I want to fast forward, because I feel like the Canucks are going to make the trade that we've been talking about for like 2 months, and I'm tired of thinking about it and reading about it and talking about it, and I'm just I want to know what it is. What is it going to be at the move?
Yeah,
if there is a move, unless it's just like a re-signing of JT Miller or something. I just want it to be something.
I mean, I'll take it either way, I think, right now, because it will put, as you say, to bed the discussion that has dominated Canucks fans for the last almost like 6 months.
Yeah.
It's divided people. It's, but it will be nice to see whatever happens there. But yeah, I'm really excited about the draft this year. I think that even without the Canucks component, I think there's going to be some big moves. And it feels like there hasn't been those at the drafts for the last couple of years, probably because they've been virtual. So I'm pretty excited this year about everyone getting together and hopefully some big moves coming down.
Yeah.
The last kind of bit of
feel that way every year, but I feel I'm with.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, I said go ahead.
No, I was just gonna kind of change it up and say like the next kind of bit of Canucks news that we have to talk about is like Hall of Fame stuff.
Okay.
But, yeah, so I mean, I was pretty stoked when the Hall of Fame class was announced this year because there's three Canucks that are going to be on it. They're all first ballot Hall of Famers. We got both Daniel and Henrik Sedin, and then we've got Bobby Lou, and I'm pretty stoked for all those guys. 3 kind of core members of that 2011 squad all going to enter together. I don't think you can really argue about any of them getting in. I know every year now it seems to be the talk about Alex McGillney still not being inducted, which I agree at this point feels kind of late. But those 3 specifically, I think, deserve their first ballot Hall of Famers, right?
Yeah. And who was the 4th player?
Daniel Alfredsson. So that's the one that people kind of are flip-flopping on, but he did also have quite a career.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I don't know about you, but every year I kind of don't have that much interest in the whole like Hall of Fame weekend. For some reason, like that part of hockey doesn't grab me. So I'm kind of excited this year about actually getting excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, I like finding out who goes in, but in terms of like paying attention to the ceremony, I've never have.
And it's gonna be like a whole weekend basically of Canucks stuff, right? Which is gonna be pretty cool. I mean, obviously not totally, but there's gonna be a big Canuck component to it. So
yeah, that'll be cool. And I mean, good for Bobby Lou because he's the leading franchise winning goaltender for 2 different franchises, which like I think only Patrick Waugh is the same, I think. Don't quote me.
So. I believe you're right, but I'm not 100% on that one.
Might actually be Marc-Andre Fleury now too, with Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Is he? He must be in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Because before it was like Ken Reggett or Tom Barrasso, somebody who only lasted like a short period of time. Anyways, moving on to the Stanley Cup results. As we know, it came and went. I think we talked last during game 1 or after game 1 or something like that. And Colorado got their cup. Good for them. They were the better team. There was, some controversy in the series with the too many men thing, but whatever. Ultimately, I think Colorado just was the more dominant team and was bound to get their cup. and good for Tampa for making it there 3 years in a row. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, I actually didn't watch Game 6. I'll come clean, because yeah, I went to see a show basically instead, and I was conflicted on if I wanted to stay and watch it or not. But when I saw the results for like the first 2 seconds, I was kind of disappointed, mainly because I knew you tied me. But then I came home and I watched all the celebrations of Colorado winning their cup, and I was really happy for them. There's a lot of players on that team that I have liked for a while, and it was nice to see them win. It's nice to see, you know, Nate Mack finally get his cup. And I really like Gabriel Landeskog as a player, so that was nice. I liked seeing Nazem Kadri win one. I thought it was good for him, and I don't know, like, again, as you said, they were clearly the better team. I found like the final at times disappointing, then at times really good. It's too bad. Like, I feel like, again, I don't think it would have changed. I think Colorado is still the better team, but it would have been nice to see Tampa like slightly healthier. Like, mainly I think when Cirelli went down, like, it was just over for that team, right? They were too hurt. But I do also find it funny. There's a lot of people like kind of dancing on Tampa's grave, and it's like, you know, they're the only team in the Cup era to make 3 consecutive Stanley Cup finals.
Yeah.
So anyway, good for Colorado. It's been fun watching them party with the Cup.
And yeah, as you alluded to, I made the miraculous comeback and tied you in the bracket. Waiting to the final round to finally get a games prediction correct, and getting the bonus point from Cale Makar, getting the Conn Smythe. So I'll take it. I don't have to buy you. I don't have to buy you a ticket into the movie theater because of the big comeback. So I think that puts us at 1-1-1 in our brackets now.
Yeah,
which is fine. I'm fine with that.
It's all good. Yeah.
Behind.
As I said, I was mad for like 2 seconds and then I was happy. So.
So yeah, good for Colorado, and they'll have a super interesting offseason ahead because they have a ton of contracts that were up, and it's not like they don't have money, but they also have 1 year left of McKinnon on his sweetheart deal, so they can't just like blow it on re-signing Kadri and Nichushkin and all these players.
Yeah, and it sounds like people are talking like Kemper and them are leaning towards a deal, and then I've also heard Nichushkin, but it's gonna be interesting to see those numbers if they do, because yeah, as you say, they're gonna have to be careful with their money right now, particularly with Nate Mack.
Yeah. So yeah, moving on from them to the bridesmaid, Tampa Bay. You know, full props and credits to them, but right away, you know, the joke was it was 10 minutes after they lost the cup that Julien Brisebois was back to doing business.
Yeah.
And he signed Nick Paul to a 7-year deal of like 3.1 or something mil per, which like
good deal, but like a long-term contract. But yeah, it makes sense, right?
I think that's like the ideal, like works for both really well, you know, because like 3 mil against the cap for him is pretty good, it seems like, but 7 years is probably a little too much, but at that price, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's probably happy to have that non-taxable security for 7 years.
And I mean, I don't know how much like Julien Brisebois cares about in 7 years' time. Like, he knows he has a competitive team that's in a Stanley Cup window. So let's just keep it kind of going if we can, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they're also got interesting moves, which have started, which I'm sure you're getting to.
Totally. Yeah, like they dumped off Ryan McDonough when he has 4 years left at, what is it, 6.25 or 6.5 mil?
I think it was 6.5.
Yeah, so it's like a hefty contract, and he's 34 now, I believe.
Yeah.
So they made that move at the right time. Like, they kind of had to, but like they didn't have to pay to get rid of him before his play started to decline, which was the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing too about it that'll say, like, from Ryan McDonough's perspective, he didn't have to leave. Like, they asked him to waive and he did, which is like quite nice for the player, because you know, the player could have just said, no, I'm happy here, blah 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 blah, but he was okay to leave, which I think is nice. And as you say, they didn't get really much back for him, but it's the cap space that matters to them more than anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, Philippe Myers, I feel like for them will be like a serviceable defenseman. He's obviously not McDonough, but
Yeah, but I mean, McDonough, like there wasn't the left side of their defense was Hedman, McDonough, and Sergachev. So it
yeah,
kind of just allows Sergachev to move up into the top four.
yeah,
And Fleet Myers can be okay as a whatever, 5, 6, 7.
yeah. I think he'll be for them better than what he was for Nashville, essentially. But
Yeah, because I think he was better for Philly than he was for Nashville.
yeah. And then their other player was like a throw-in kind of.
Yeah, I read a little bit. He was like a second rounder from a couple drafts ago or something.
Yeah.
So taking a flyer on it. Maybe they throw him down in wherever their team is, and all of a sudden he becomes the next like Carter Verhaeghe or
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, also good on Nashville because I feel like that defense core for next year is gonna be good. But I'm not again. It feels like that move's a little bit puzzling for them in the long term, but who cares?
I know, and it made me feel like okay, they did this move, so they're all in on now and who they have. So I felt like the Forsberg extension was going to come like right after, and we still haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of puzzling. So we'll see where that all goes with Nashville. And then from there, we can move on to the next trade, which was a pretty significant one. Like I've become a fan of Fiala last year or two. Especially this past year, he had such chemistry with that kid. What's his name? Boldy.
Yeah.
And he had such a crazy year, and we just knew, like, we knew they weren't going to be able to keep him because of the dead cap.
Yeah.
So him getting traded to LA for the prospect Brock Faber and a first rounder pretty much crushes my prediction of Evander Kane going to LA. I think I can't see them going down that road now that they acquired Fiala and then signed him right away for like whatever it was, 7 or 8 years at like 7.9.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 7.9. Yeah.
So he got paid, and good for him. And he'll probably be pretty much what LA needed.
Yeah, I think so. And LA is getting to the point where they kind of scare me. And this thing about LA is they still have a bunch of kind of prospect forwards that either they can move for other pieces or they can infiltrate into their lineup. I think Fiala is a very good player, and I agree. I think he is the prime target that LA could have gone after. But I actually think Minnesota did pretty well. At first, when I read the trade, I thought that Minnesota got a second rounder and then Brock Faber. And I was like, oh, that's not very much. But I guess everyone knew that they kind of had to trade him. Right. But when I saw that it was the first and Brock Faber, I was like, that's actually pretty good. And it seems like as far as like a second round prospect goes, Brock Faber has a pretty high upside. And he is a right-hand D. So as you said, maybe that's a precursor to moving Matt Dumba down the road. Probably not right away. So again, I think in terms of like winners and losers, I almost feel like it was a fair trade. And then
fair trade.
Yeah.
The win to LA just because Fiala is younger than I thought. He's still like 24.
Yeah. And
so locking him in until he's like 30, it's like, well, based on the year he just had, like if he continues that way, that's going to look pretty good.
Yeah. So it'll be one to watch down the road for sure, and then we'll see who Minnesota picks up with that pick too this year, obviously.
Yeah, and that was probably like a 20th overall or something like that.
19th, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And then we can continue on with like some more of our coaching carousel fallout. As I was commenting before we started the episode, we've done pretty good with our predictions. Barry Trotz opting to not coach kind of threw a wrench into things. So Winnipeg kind of sounds like they scrambled and they brought in Rick Bowness.
Yeah, so I was listening to some talk about that today, and it sounds like it kind of surprised everyone because when they heard they were interviewing Rick Bowness, they assumed it was like as an assistant. But part of the talk was that, Rick Bowness, he's been around for a long time. He did a good job in Dallas after being thrust into a weird situation with like Jim Montgomery leaving. And he did a good job. And so the kind of thought is that he's like adaptable, but also if Barry Trotz next year decides that he wants to coach in Winnipeg, he's the kind of guy that probably would be okay just sliding down and being an assistant for them.
Right.
It kind of gives them some options, and it's almost like a stopgap.
So would they give him 2 years?
They gave him 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. I mean, I really like Rick Bowness. I've loved him since he was on the Canucks 2011 team, so I thought it was kind of cool he got another shot. But I was pretty shocked when that was who was announced.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the coaches, like, the carousel's filling up pretty quickly. Like,
yeah, I mean, the other one that just happened too is Bob Bugner in San Jose got let go, which was kind of late.
it was interesting because when he got let go, literally all the free spots that were open were now taken.
Yeah. So as you said, everyone's kind of gotten taken up. But yeah,
So
will be interesting to watch Winnipeg. And I think that Bonus will be good for their defenseman, which was kind of part of the problem in Winnipeg this year. He's a pretty good defensive coach. So we'll see what he's got there.
and before we hop back over to San Jose, we'll just quickly go over. We both predicted after Tampa finished the playoffs that their assistant coach, Derek Lavonde, would go to Detroit because he has that connection with Stevie Y. And sure enough, it was like 10 seconds after they had him holding up a Detroit jersey. So we can tick that box. We got that one right, but I think everyone knew that was coming.
Yeah.
And then Boston made their hire.
Yeah.
And I think we both talked about how Jim Montgomery was going to get another shot after being assistant coach of St. Louis somewhere.
Yep.
I know we didn't predict him in Boston, but Boston hired him as the coach. And, he did a pretty good job in Dallas. We'll see what he can do in Boston.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing about Boston is that they also extended Don Sweeney.
Oh, did they?
They did, which I thought was pretty weird. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty divisive GM. And so, firing Bruce Cassidy was a big move because I think a lot of Bruins fans probably would have wanted Don Sweeney fired and them to keep Bruce Cassidy, but they extend Don Sweeney and then he hires Jim Montgomery. I have very little kind of feel on him as a coach because, again, the last time he was a head coach was the whole Dallas situation, but he has put in the work since then, and we'll see what he's got. And it, again, I think we talked about last time, but it sounds like Bergeron's going to come back for one more year.
Yeah, they haven't made it official, but it seems like one of those things.
And I feel like Montgomery's probably a coach that wants like a competitive team. So there's a couple things there that are interesting.
I feel like there's parallels between Boston and Winnipeg because Cheveldayoff got extended too. Yeah. And I think there was a lot of people, maybe not in Winnipeg, but in the hockey world that were kind of surprised.
Yep.
Because he's been the GM there since like they came back from Atlanta.
Yeah, he's lasted for a long time. Well, both of them have lasted for a long time right now. So
yeah. And then we'll bounce back over to San Jose because you mentioned Bugner got fired after all the empty spots had got filled because the thought was they're bringing in a new GM. They've been doing an exhaustive GM search for what feels like 8 months.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. And today they announced Mike Greer as the new GM. And it's like a historical thing because he's the first African-American general manager in the NHL history.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see who he brings in as his first head coach because he's got like an old core aging team, but the window's closed. But what can they do and who's still available? Like, I don't know. Is he the type of guy that's going to bring in a Claude Julien or a Mike Babcock or some unknown? Like,
yeah, San Jose is just like almost a I don't know how to describe them. A train wreck. Like, I don't know. The roster construction is bad. And they've handed out a lot of long-term deals to their core now that just seem kind of silly for what they are. And I don't really think they can afford to move out any of their big contracts on defense because, of course, it would require them to probably package high-level prospects with them. So I get the feeling because he's a first-time GM, he's gonna hire like a first-time coach.
Yeah,
And it might be someone that he played with.
kind of like a Hextall Hackstall scenario.
Yeah, but who
Oh,
knows?
how that went.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
there's
my prediction, which isn't a very good prediction, but I
it
think
is
we'll
it
get
is a
it.
fascinating offseason for a ton of teams. And I know it feels like that every year. Like, the teams who lost in the first round or the teams who thought they were going to make the playoffs didn't make the playoffs. It's like, oh, there's all these teams, they're going to make all these moves. And like some moves get made, but it's often quieter than you expect. But it just feels like one of those off seasons that things are going to just really go off the rails.
Well, this is also the first year that the GMs know there's more money. So the NHL made money this year. They know the cap's going to go up in a couple of years, and that is just like a recipe for stupid decisions, which I'm all here for, as long as it's not the Canucks.
Well, I mean, lucky for the Canucks and you. It seems like everything they've done since they brought in Jim Rutherford and the new regime,
Yes.
it seems like they're very articulate and very smart with their decision making, and they're not doing anything too quickly. So,
Yeah.
for once, well, so it's a humongous 180 from the past regime. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Yeah. So other than that, I don't, off the top of my head, I've been kind of winging it. I can't think of anything else that we would have to recap in the last 2 weeks.
I think we've hit everything that I had written down. So
Nice. All right. Well, that means we'll have to get back together quickly tomorrow for a quick episode number 84 mock draft. I think we should do the top 15 picks so we can
do the Canucks.
get the Canucks in there. Sure.
I agree. That would be great. And yeah, I'll have to start writing things down.
And then, yeah, draft on Thursday. And then we won't be able to talk again because we'll be away for a little bit. So we'll have to talk about free agent frenzy the day after it kicks off. So
Woo woo, busy time.
So yeah, this has been Hockey Talk on the Rock, episode number 83. Thank you all for listening. That's Laura. I'm Keith. Tune in next time.
Woo.